Across the windswept plains of Mongolia, where the earth stretches endlessly beneath an infinite sky, a legend was born that would reshape the destiny of mankind. In the year 1162, in a simple felt tent on the frozen steppe, a child entered the world clutching a blood clot in his tiny fist. The shamans whispered it was a sign. This boy would spill rivers of blood before his time was done. They called him Temüjin, but history would know him by another name. Genghis Khan, the Universal Ruler. This is the epic saga of the Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in human history. A tale of conquest and connection, of destruction and creation, of how a forgotten tribe from nowhere came to rule everywhere. From the ashes of abandonment rose the fire that would consume the world. The steppe is a merciless teacher, and young Temüjin learned its harshest lessons early. When he was just 9 years old, his father Ögedei was murdered, poisoned by the rival Tatar tribe during what should have been a peaceful feast. With their protector dead, Temüjin's family was cast out by their own people, the Taichud, and left to starve in the wilderness. His mother, Halun, gathered her children around their dying fire and spoke words that would echo through the ages. "We have no friends but our shadows, no whips but our horses' tails. We must survive on our own." And survive they did. Through bitter winters and scorching summers, Temüjin grew from a desperate boy into something harder than the steppe itself. He learned that in this world, there were only two choices: conquer or be conquered, rule or be ruled, live or die. Every betrayal taught him cunning. Every hardship forged his will. Every enemy showed him the price of weakness. The boy who had been abandoned would abandon no one who served him faithfully. The child who had been betrayed would never forget the faces of traitors. The youth who had tasted starvation would feast on the wealth of nations. From these brutal years emerged the iron determination that would build an empire. By his 20th year, Temüjin had begun the impossible task of uniting the Mongol tribe's clans that had warred against each other since time immemorial. He offered something revolutionary. A brotherhood based not on blood, but on loyalty. Noble birth meant nothing. Only merit mattered. A shepherd who fought bravely could rise to command princes. A warrior who showed courage could share in the spoils of victory. This was his genius. He didn't just conquer his enemies. He converted them. Former foes became his most devoted followers. Ancient feuds were buried beneath a new vision of Mongol unity. One by one, the tribes fell into line. The Merkits, who had kidnapped his beloved wife Berte, were crushed and scattered. The Tatars, who had murdered his father, were so completely annihilated that their very name vanished from history. The Naimans, the Karaites, the Taiklud all were either destroyed or absorbed into his growing confederation. In 1206, at a great assembly called a Kurultai beside the sacred Onon River, representatives of all the Mongol tribes gathered. With one voice, they proclaimed Temüjin as their supreme leader, their great Khan. He took the title Genghis Khan, meaning oceanic ruler, for his dominion would be as vast and boundless as the sea itself. The Mongol Empire was born. Chapter 3. Genghis Khan's gaze now turned beyond the steppe, toward the glittering cities and fertile lands of China. The Middle Kingdom was divided between two powers, the Western Xia in the northwest, and the mighty Jin dynasty in the north. Both considered the Mongols nothing more than barbarian raiders, useful only for tribute and trade. They were catastrophically wrong. In 1209, the Mongol war machine struck like lightning from the grasslands. Their tactics were unlike anything the Chinese had ever faced. Swift cavalry units appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Mongols offered every city the same choice: surrender and live, or resist and die. Those who opened their gates found mercy and protection. Those who defied the Khan discovered why men called his warriors the Devil's Horsemen. The siege of Zhongdu, modern Beijing, lasted over a year. When it finally fell, the Mongols found treasures beyond their wildest dreams. Silk and gold, jade and pearls, the accumulated wealth of centuries. But more valuable than gold were the Chinese engineers, administrators, and scholars who would help transform a tribal confederation into a world empire. The Jin dynasty, which had ruled northern China for over a century, crumbled like sand before the Mongol storm. The Son of Heaven's mandate had passed to the children of the eternal blue sky. But this was only the beginning. While Mongol armies conquered China, Genghis Khan's attention turned westward, toward the wealthy Khwarezmid Empire that stretched from the Caspian Sea to the Persian Gulf. At first, the Khan sought trade, not war. He sent a caravan of 450 merchants to establish commercial relations with Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad. It should have been the beginning of a profitable partnership. Instead, it became the prelude to apocalypse. The governor of Otrar, suspecting the merchants were spies, seized their goods and executed them all. When Genghis Khan sent an envoy demanding justice, the Shah had the ambassador killed and sent his head back to Mongolia. It was the greatest mistake in the history of the Islamic world. The Khan's response was swift and merciless. In 1219, he personally led an army of 200 warriors westward. What followed was not merely conquest, it was the systematic erasure of an entire civilization. Otrar, where the merchants had been murdered, was wiped from existence. Its governor was executed by having molten silver poured into his eyes and ears. Bukhara, the great center of Islamic learning, was burned to ash. The Khan himself rode his horse into the city's grand mosque and declared, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Samarkand, jewel of the Silk Road, fell in just 3 days. Its 250,000 inhabitants were either slaughtered or enslaved. At Urgench, the Mongols diverted the Amu Darya River to wash away even the ruins of the city. Survivors spoke of pyramids built from human skulls, of cities so thoroughly destroyed that grass would not grow there for generations. The Khwarezmid Empire, which had taken centuries to build, was obliterated in less than 2 years. Terror became the Mongols' greatest weapon. Word of their approach traveled faster than their horses, causing entire cities to surrender without a fight. The choice was always the same: submit or be annihilated. Chapter 5. The Mongol storm did not stop at the borders of Islam. Like an unstoppable force of nature, it swept westward into the Christian lands of Europe. In 1223, Mongol scouts crossed the Caucasus Mountains and encountered the princes of the Rus at the Kalka River. The Slavic nobles, proud in their heavy armor and mounted on their great war horses, charged the Mongol lines with supreme confidence. They were annihilated. For the first time, Europe felt the shadow of the Mongol Empire. But this was merely a reconnaissance in force. The real invasion would come later, under Genghis Khan's successors. In 1237, Batu Khan, grandson of the Great Khan, led 150 warriors into the Russian principalities. City after city fell like dominoes. Moscow burned. Kiev, the mother of Russian cities, was so thoroughly destroyed that a traveler 6 years later found only 200 houses standing among the ruins. The Mongols crossed the frozen rivers like highways of ice, their horses' hooves thundering across the winter landscape. No fortress could stop them, no army could stand against them. By 1241, they had penetrated deep into the heart of Europe. At Legnica in Poland, they crushed a combined force of Polish knights, German crusaders, and Templar warriors. At Mohi in Hungary, they annihilated the Hungarian royal army so completely that King Bela IV barely escaped with his life. European chroniclers called them the Scourge of God, believing the end times had arrived. From the Baltic to the Adriatic, panic spread like wildfire. The Pope called for a new crusade, not against the Muslims in the Holy Land, but against these demons from the east. Then, suddenly, the storm passed. News arrived that the great Khan Ögedei had died in distant Karakorum. The Mongol generals, bound by law and tradition, withdrew their armies to elect a new supreme ruler. Europe had been saved by death itself, but the Mongols were far more than destroyers. Once the age of conquest ended, something remarkable emerged from the ashes of war. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace. For the first time in human history, a single empire connected the rising sun to the setting moon, from Korea to Hungary, from Siberia to India. The Mongol domain stretched across 2 continents and encompassed dozens of cultures, languages, and religions. Under Mongol rule, the ancient Silk Road became humanity's first global superhighway. Merchants could travel safely from Venice to Beijing, protected by the Khan's guarantee of safe passage. Caravans that once required private armies now moved under the protection of a single, universal law. The Mongol postal system, known as the Yam, was a marvel of medieval engineering. Relay stations stretched across the empire, each stocked with fresh horses and supplies. A message could travel from Paris to Karakorum in just 3 months, a miracle of communication that would not be surpassed until the age of telegraph. Ideas flowed as freely as goods. Chinese inventions like gunpowder, paper money, and printing spread westward. Islamic mathematics and astronomy enlightened European scholars. Persian poetry inspired Chinese artists. For the first time, the world was truly connected. Marco Polo walked the streets of Khanbalik and dined at the court of Kublai Khan. Ibn Battuta traveled from Morocco to Mongolia under Mongol protection. Rabban Sauma, an Nestorian monk from Beijing, journeyed to Paris and met with the King of France. The Mongols practiced religious tolerance on an unprecedented scale. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Taoists, and shamanists all found protection under Mongol law. The Khan's court included advisors from every faith and culture. This was the Mongol gift to humanity. Not just conquest, but connection. Not just empire, but exchange. They had created the world's first truly global civilization, but even paradise carried within it the seeds of destruction. The same trade routes that carried silk and spices also bore something far more sinister: disease. In the 1340s, the Black Death emerged from the steppes of Central Asia and followed the Mongol trade networks westward. Carried by fleas on rats aboard merchant ships, the plague spread with terrifying speed along the very roads the Mongols had made safe. From the ports of the Black Sea, it swept into Europe like a dark tide. London, Paris, Florence, no city was spared. In just 5 years, the plague killed 1/3 of Europe's population. Entire villages were abandoned. Cathedrals stood empty. The living could barely bury the dead. The Mongols had opened the world's arteries, but poison flowed through them as freely as gold. This was the terrible irony of the Mongol achievement. In connecting the world, they had also made it vulnerable. The same networks that spread knowledge and prosperity also spread death and devastation. The age of innocence was over. The world the Mongols had created would never be the same. By the late 13th century, cracks were appearing in the Mongol Empire's foundation. The fierce warriors who had conquered half the world were growing soft in the palaces of their subjects. Mongol princes adopted the customs of their conquered peoples, becoming Chinese emperors, Persian shahs, and Russian boyars. The unity that had made them invincible was dissolving into competing interests and rival ambitions. Their enemies, meanwhile, were learning and adapting. The age of the mounted archer was ending, replaced by gunpowder weapons and professional armies. Stone fortresses grew higher and stronger. The tactics that had once seemed invincible were becoming obsolete. Failed campaigns shattered the myth of Mongol invincibility. The invasions of Japan in 1274 and 1281 ended in disaster, when storms which the Japanese called kamikaze, the divine wind, destroyed the Mongol fleets. Expeditions to Java and Vietnam bogged down in jungle warfare. The aura of inevitable victory was broken. After the death of Möngke Khan in 1259, the Great Unity finally shattered. The empire split into 4 separate khanates, each following its own path. In China, Kublai Khan founded the Yuan dynasty, ruling as a Chinese emperor until Ming rebels drove out his successors in 1368. In Persia, the Ilkhanate adopted Islam and Persian culture, but collapsed into chaos in the 1330s, paving the way for Tamerlane's brutal conquests. In Russia, the Golden Horde dominated the Slavic principalities for over 2 centuries, collecting tribute from Moscow's princes until Ivan the Great finally broke the Mongol yoke in 1480. In Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate fragmented into a dozen petty kingdoms that warred endlessly among themselves. The dream of one world under the eternal blue sky was dying. In Mongolia itself, the descendants of Genghis Khan struggled to maintain their independence and identity. The Northern Yuan, as Chinese historians called them, fought a losing battle against the expanding Ming dynasty while trying to preserve their nomadic traditions. They were caught between 2 worlds, no longer the masters of a world empire, but not yet willing to accept subjugation. In the 16th century, Altan Khan made a fateful decision that would transform Mongol culture forever. He embraced Tibetan Buddhism, inviting the Dalai Lama to Mongolia and converting his people to the peaceful teachings of the Buddha. The warriors who had once terrorized the world became monks and herders. The descendants of the great conquerors found solace in meditation and prayer. It was a transformation as complete as any in human history. But the age of steppe empires was ending. Gunpowder had changed warfare forever. The Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires, all founded by Turkic and Mongol peoples, now ruled through cannons and muskets, not horse archery and mobility. By the 18th century, the Qing dynasty had absorbed the last independent Mongol Khanates. The descendants of Genghis Khan became subjects of the Chinese emperor they had once conquered. The wheel of history had come full circle. Yet the Mongols never truly disappeared. Their impact echoes through history in ways both visible and hidden. The trade networks they protected became the foundation of global commerce. The administrative systems they pioneered influenced China, Russia, and the Islamic world for centuries. The religious tolerance they practiced became a model for multicultural societies. Modern genetic studies reveal the staggering scope of their influence. Scientists estimate that 16 million people alive today, roughly 1 in every 200 men, carry the genetic markers of Genghis Khan's lineage. His genes have conquered the world more thoroughly than his armies ever did. From Moscow's rise as the Third Rome to the Ming dynasty's isolationist policies, from the spread of Islam in Southeast Asia to the Renaissance's global perspective, the Mongol impact shaped our modern world in countless ways. The borders of nations, the rise and fall of dynasties, the spread of religions and technologies, the very concept of a connected world, all bear the invisible fingerprints of the Mongol Empire. In Mongolia today, Genghis Khan is not remembered as a destroyer, but as the father of the nation. His image adorns their currency. His name graces their airport. His spirit lives in every Mongolian heart. He is their Washington and Lincoln, their Arthur and Charlemagne, rolled into one towering figure. But his legacy extends far beyond the borders of his homeland. In every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, every connection between East and West, the spirit of the Mongol Empire lives on. Under the boundless sky, the Mongolian steppe unfolds, a landscape of stark beauty and brutal challenge. A lone figure against the horizon, Temüjin battles the unforgiving wilderness. Each sunrise a test of endurance. He hunts, a predator mirroring the steppe's harsh lessons. Survival demands strength and cunning. In a landscape where only the strong survive, Temüjin's voice echoes. Only the strong survive here. Confrontation ignites as Temüjin clashes with rival tribes, each encounter forging his path toward destiny. From the crucible of the steppe, a legend is born, tempered by adversity and destined to command. The Samarkand marketplace pulsates with life, a convergence of cultures and commerce. Stalls overflow with exotic goods, perfumes mingling with the aroma of distant lands. Mongol soldiers stride purposefully, maintaining order and ensuring the empire's prosperity. Amidst the throng, a scholar marvels at the boundless possibilities. The Khan's peace has opened the world to us. Samarkand stands as a vital artery, pulsing with the lifeblood of global trade. In the heart of the imperial library, Kublai Khan sits amidst a wealth of knowledge, surrounded by scrolls and books from every corner of the empire. Scholars from diverse lands engage in passionate debate, their voices echoing through the hall, a testament to the Mongol ruler's patronage of the arts and sciences. Kublai Khan listens intently, his gaze sweeping across the room, absorbing the flow of ideas and wisdom. With a glint of conviction in his eyes, Kublai declares, "Knowledge is the greatest weapon, greater even than the sword."